Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Lorna McGrath, and I'm usually your host on the Montessori Family Life webinars. Today is kind of a special day. It will still go on to that site, but probably will be seen in other places as well. I am so lucky to be able to interview the 2020 NewGate School graduates, or seniors. They're not graduated yet. They're getting there. They're so close, they can hardly stand it. And so what I wanted to talk with all of them about today was their Montessori experience. Now, they'll probably say my NewGate experience, or at NewGate we do this or that, and that's okay, because Montessori schools are very similar no matter where they are. They have their own personality, of course, just like we do, but they're similar in the way that they teach and the things that the students learn. And I don't just mean biology and chemistry and calculus. I mean by what they learn about who they are, what the world is, and how people deal with each other and have relationships. So that's an important part of what happens in a Montessori school. Some of you out there that are listening are parents. You may have some very young children, and that's why I'm always glad to have these 17, 18-year-old, 19 maybe, year old folks come on, because then you can see what it's like when a person goes through Montessori. I will tell you that not everyone who you see today has been in Montessori since they were 2 or 3 years old. So what we're going to start with is just introducing ourselves to you. And seniors, what I'd like you to do is just say your first name. You don't have to say your last name. And then just tell us, like how many years you've been in Montessori, and if you've ever been to any other school. It doesn't have to be long. Like I went to public school for a year. That's good enough. You don't have to tell us about public school right now. So I'll start it off. I did say that I was Lorna McGrath. I have been in Montessori education since 1979, and I've done a lot of different things in Montessori. I've taught, I've been an administrator, and now I work for the Montessori Foundation, and I do consulting as well as family and parenting things. So that's me. So who would like to start?
I can go.
Okay.
I'm Tegan. I've been in Montessori since I was 2, and both of my parents are Montessori educators, so it's a big part of my life.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, somebody else. Thanks, Tegan.
I'm Matthew, and I came to Montessori when I was 18 months old. And so I've been in for about 12 years, and I left for 3 years and went to public school in between.
And we're so glad you came back. Thank you. Madison.
My name is Madison, and similar to Matthew, I also left for a little bit, but I think in total I've been at Montessori, or I've been at NewGate for around 7 years, but in between that I attended a Waldorf school and was also homeschooled for a bit.
Wow, okay. Those things are related in a way to Montessori. Yeah. Okay, somebody else.
I'm Nina, and I have been in Montessori since kindergarten, and I've never been to a different school other than NewGate.
All right, thanks, Nina. We're glad you're here. Somebody else?
I'm Anjali. I've been in Montessori for the past 4 years, and before that I went to public school for elementary and middle school.
Thanks, Anjali. Glad you're here. Somebody else?
I'm Alex, and I also went to public school up through middle school, and I started with Montessori in high school.
Great. We're glad you're here too. All right, we've got a couple more that haven't said anything yet. Braxton, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Braxton, and I've been in Montessori school since 2nd grade, so it's been pretty much my entire schooling experience.
Pretty much. So you must have gone to public for a couple of years?
Kindergarten and 1st grade, yeah, that was it.
Okay. How about Reagan?
Hi, I'm Reagan. I've only been at NewGate and at Montessori for 2 years. I spent all of elementary in public school, all of middle school in private, and my first 2 years of high school in online.
Wow, quite a variety.
Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
Hi, I'm Jet. For all of elementary school and kindergarten, I went to a public school, and I came to a Montessori school whenever I started middle school. So I've been here for about 6 years.
Great, we're glad you're here. So, go ahead.
I'm Lainey. I've been in Montessori for about 4 years, and I went to public school 9 years prior to Montessori.
Great, we're glad you're here. All right, so that's our crew for today. There are a couple more graduates that will be graduating whenever graduation happens. And they weren't able to come to this meeting with us today. And by the way, I want to say before we get going too much farther along, you know, it's been a really, to say the least, a really crazy end of the school year from March on. Somewhat upsetting in some ways, very uncertain, sometimes scary. And so I want to just acknowledge all of you for completing the work that you needed to do in a really different way without your friends. Well, you have your friends, but you don't have your friends. It's kind of like being in the Twilight Zone. Oh, you might not know the Twilight Zone.
I do.
Thank you.
I do too.
Anyways, it's a different kind of experience, and I acknowledge and appreciate all of you for doing what you're doing and for, you know, accomplishing this diploma that you will be getting soon. One of the things I think we'll talk about first, it's not on your list, oh, I do this, is so what has your experience been like with this virtual thing going on? And then what are your hopes for your graduation? I've heard a little bit from Tanya and Jeff about your thoughts about that and what you want to do. So does anybody want to talk about your virtual experience with the end of high school, and maybe somebody else talk about what you're feeling about how you would like to see graduation happen if it could?
I can go.
Okay.
So a lot of the seniors in here do IB, and so that was mostly what made up, at least for me, the end of my school year. So we weren't really doing much new content or like really having to learn anything, which was nice because we already knew what we had to complete. So for me, it was just having to finish all of those assignments and keep myself accountable when there aren't teachers around every day telling you need to turn this in and stuff. So it reminded me a lot of being homeschooled. And that was one of the things I didn't like about homeschool, was that it wasn't very structured and I had to kind of make myself do all the work. But I noticed that through IB, I actually became a lot better at that, just like being self-guided and things like that compared to middle school. So once I got it all done, it was really nice. But as far as graduation goes, I would obviously want it to be in person as much as I could. Yeah, those are my feelings.
Thank you, Madison. That was great. Somebody else want to talk about your experience this spring with the virtual school?
Sure, I'll talk a little bit, I guess. You know, as Madison said, a lot of us do IB. And so when they announced at the end of spring break that our exams were canceled, that was very different for a lot of us because that's what we prepare for 2 years. And so, you know, it changed things up a little bit. And so they originally extended the deadlines for all of our assignments that we had to turn into IB, and then they changed the deadline back to the original deadline. And so it was a very exhilarating month, the first month of quarantine, making sure everything got in, everything was top quality. But after that, you know, it's kind of slowed down now. We've had a few more things left, a few more assignments, but mostly we've been doing independent things and working on our own. And, you know, graduation, we would all love for it to be in person. And as it stands right now, it looks like we'll be doing something for closure at, you know, this month, you know, in the next week or two, virtually. And then in July, we might be able to have an in-person graduation, depending on the situation.
Sure.
So that looks good, and that's what we've discussed so far.
That's
So
great.
we're looking at a few different venues and areas where we'd be able to host an outdoor graduation.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Let's see. How about on the other side of my screen? Reagan, Anjali, Tegan, Lainey, anybody want to talk?
Well, I'm actually not doing, I'm only doing one IB class.
Mhm.
So I chose not to do IB because I didn't feel like it would suit me very well. So for me, I've only had like 2 or 3 classes to do with new material. And wrapping that up was difficult because, kind of like Madison said, I didn't really like that aspect of my online schooling because I didn't feel like I had enough people to like hold me accountable to things. So I've really utilized emailing my teachers, calling my teachers for one-on-one sessions, trying to get as much help as I can so I can finish things up and graduate. I don't think I really had anything other than like maybe a math final, if that I had to look forward to at the end of the year. So I didn't have anything big canceled for me, but it was a little tricky kind of. I understood online schooling. I'd done it for 2 or 3 years, but definitely having that accountability piece was something that I missed having.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hey, Jet, how about you? What's been your experience this spring?
I think, ever since we started online schooling, I'm not going to say it was a rough transition, but it was all right. I do miss, going back to the physical campus, but, with everything going on, that's not able to happen. And all the schoolwork we had, I did IB as well. And, I was just staying accountable for everything you were doing. And I don't think I had as much as a hard time as others with that. Like it was just, there's this is what I have to do and this is when I have to do it by. But, I do miss, the physical campus. That's probably the biggest thing about this and spending time with my friends.
Yeah. Wow, that's tough. Alex, haven't heard from you.
Yeah, well, I mostly agree with everyone else, just in the sense that, yeah, it's quite different. I think the teachers at our school did a really good job trying to quickly transition us to this new virtual world. And I've actually enjoyed the opportunity to keep myself accountable and try to get things done on time, because that's how it's going to be in college, surely. Because typically you don't have your professors coming after you and you're in a big lecture style class trying to make sure you get something done. So I've enjoyed this opportunity actually, because I think it will help me later on and provide me with skills I just might need one day.
Thank you.
I agree with Alex. I think that the school did a really good job of transitioning. I enjoyed the online classes that we did through the school compared to FLVS. I'd much rather do any NewGate class than FLVS.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody who hasn't spoken that would like to right now, because we're going to go on to the next question if not. Okay. All right, so the question is, I want to start with just by saying that friendship's a really important aspect of growing up. And especially during the teen years, there's so much that you guys love about being together and being with your friends and doing things together. And many parents and many people worry that in a small Montessori high school, there aren't enough opportunities for close and lasting friendships. Has that been your experience? Putting aside not being able to be together for 10 weeks or so, but, was that your experience in this high school, that you didn't really have the opportunity to make friendships and you didn't have opportunities like, prom or football games or, all these other activities that NewGate hasn't offered because we're a small school. So I'm going to go to Tegan and then Madison.
I feel like when you're with the same people, like basically your entire childhood, because I've been at NewGate since 3rd grade, so I've known like Madison and Matthew and Nina like throughout my like the majority of my life, I feel like you're bound to become friends with them. Like, I'm not saying we're forced to be friends, but you just kind of like grow into having the same interests and hobbies and humor just because you like grew up together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of naturally become friends with people. And about the whole like missing out on big school experiences and stuff, there's always a balance. Like for me, it's really helped having friends outside of NewGate that I can go to like football games with and stuff like that. And like having after school activities that aren't with the exact same 14 people, because it's nice to kind of expand your horizons a little bit.
For sure. Thank you, Tegan. It almost sounds like it's, in some ways, if you've been in a Montessori school for a really long time, it's almost like being in a family. You know, you kind of have to learn how to get along and kind of like each other. I mean, you know, because you're together all the time, sort of like family is. Madison, I said you'd be next, so go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know because Nina had her hand up before me.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Nina. Do you want to talk?
No, it's okay. No,
Okay.
Madison can go first.
Okay. I was just going to say, because when I came back to NewGate, I came in 10th grade, so there was like a whole first year of high school that I wasn't really around for, and I hadn't seen most of the people I was in elementary school with for a good while, so I didn't really know what to expect coming in, but I was very pleasantly surprised by just not only how welcoming everybody already was, but how much NewGate does to kind of create bonding between people. Like the first couple days of school, we went on a unity trip to this retreat conference place and like went kayaking and played manhunt and had a bonfire. And that was like really helpful for me to just meet new people and bond without having to be in a classroom setting where you can't really like goof off and talk to other people. And I've definitely felt like, you know, most of the people I'm in class with are my siblings, and I feel like we all kind of behave like we're all siblings most of the time. So I've definitely grown a lot closer to people than I ever expected, especially in a school setting, because I feel like that's not really typical, but thanks to our small size, we're able to do that. And yeah, with prom and sports and things like that, there, like Tegan said, there are a lot of people from our school that either have friends outside of school at public schools where they go to their prom, or you know, people like play sports at public schools. So there's ways to kind of get around it. So it's not like you're confined at a small school. You can branch out still.
Yeah. Okay, I see that. Thank you, Madison. I see that Nina, you're going to be next, and then I see Matthew. You'd like Matthew. You go after Nina. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I think there are a bunch of opportunities to make strong friendships. Like Tegan said, you're stuck with the same people every day, and like Lorna said, Montessori builds a family. And the friends that I have, like Tegan, Madison, Matthew, I've known since second grade or kindergarten, and it's amazing because you watch them grow and you learn every part of them throughout the years. And I know for a fact, if I contact Matthew, Tegan, or Madison, or any of you guys really, in about 10 years, we would want to meet up and talk about what's happened in our lives, because we've been just a part of each other for so long, pretty much almost 17, 18 years, that's a whole chunk of our lives that we've been together. And I don't think we'll ever lose that.
Ooh, I love that. I just want to segue right in here for a minute. I've just created a new site on Facebook. It's a group, and it's a private group, and it's NewGate School Alums Group. So anyways, if you would like to, after you graduate, you can join that group, and it's one way of sort of sticking together, as Nina said, and I'm sure you will personally anyway, through your own spaces. But it's kind of nice to see other people from other years, and there's faculty on there as well. So some of your old teachers, old? Did I say old? Some of your former teachers are on there as well. So, okay, Matthew, you wanted to say something?
Totally, yeah. So I think that, you know, Nina, Tegan, and Madison are kind of spot on there about being in school for so long together. But what I think is also, interesting to note is that I didn't get along with like Tegan, for example. like out of the 12 years at Newgate, like 7 of those years, Tegan and I didn't, or more, Tegan and I did not get along. But it's because we were there every single year. Every year you come to school on the first day again, it's like, there's Tegan. And eventually you figure out why you don't get along with those people. And, you're able to break it down. I think that it's really great with Montessori because, we have, for example, when you're younger, we have our peace tables where we sit together and we talk about, what the conflict is. And, I've known Jet since like 6th grade. I've known Braxton for a long time, probably since I was in 4th grade. I've known Alex since I was born. Lainey, I've known you all of high school, and Reagan, I just met you last year. Anjali, you've been here since 9th grade. So, we are able to build these close friendships, and I think that our class is a little bit unique in that aspect, that we have a bigger class where most of us have been here for a long time, and we've been able to integrate people pretty fluidly, and I think that that's really important with Montessori. So yeah, I don't think that that's right, and I do wish, maybe we did have those football experiences. Nobody's having a prom experience this year, so take that. But it is like that, and I do think that there are trade-offs, obviously. But I don't think that's one of the most damaging ones, because like Tegan said, a lot of us are in extracurricular activities where we have friends from public school who we're able to experience those things with.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. That puts it really well. Reagan, Anjali, Lainey, would any of you like to speak to this? Because you did come in a little bit later into this community. Was it easy to fit in? Did it feel like you were coming into this group that was kind of closed, or what was your experience about that?
Yeah, so prior, like all of my elementary school, I felt pretty comfortable with where I was, but my dad was in the military, so I moved every 2 years of my life until I was probably like 14 or 15. So when I got to every school I was at, I was like always the new kid, so it was very hard for me to make friends as a kid. And for like 3 or 4 years there, I didn't really have friends at all through middle school. So coming into a Montessori high school, like I was really worried like I wasn't gonna fit in with everybody else, because like I knew y'all had grown up with each other, but I didn't get to tour. It was at the very end of the year, so all of you guys were in testing, so it wasn't recommended that I toured, because I would have just been sitting in there while you guys tested. But for me, like I didn't get to meet any of you guys, so I didn't know what to expect. To meet everyone here, I did feel like you guys were very, very kind and very, very welcoming, and so I did appreciate that. I was very pleasantly surprised to feel like within like the first month I was already hanging out with friends, or like sitting at lunch with people, talking with people, and I felt like I was kind of a part of a community, even if I had only been there for not even 2 years.
That's great, thank you. Anjali, how about you?
Yeah, so as someone who came in 9th grade, I was really surprised like how close I became really quickly. And because Newgate is such a small school, I was also able to become friends with people that aren't just in my grade. Like for a few years, I was friends with the seniors of that class. And so it was really cool being able to be friends with like different age groups. So.
Thanks for bringing that up, because that's an important piece in Montessori as well, is the whole idea of not just segmenting out different years of schooling, although you will, you're all seniors, and so that's something different, but that we look at people by what their skill level is, and we also collaborate a lot in Montessori. So it's not quite so segmented. I mean, you probably know kids that are in middle school and that are in 9th grade, and because we're all together in a space interacting in a different way than I think in a traditional program. Jet, I think I'm going to ask you about that because you were also in a traditional public school before NewGate. Do you want to say anything about friendships or multi-age groupings or anything like that?
I think regardless of, public school or Montessori school, the friendship opportunities like are still there. You're always going to gravitate towards the people who have similar interests towards you. I do think, there is a little bit of a difference though in like activity wise, in public schools you are able to meet outside extracurricular activity, you can meet more people since we have such a small community. But it circles back around to that like one like close knitted group of friends you have that you've known for a while that you spend your time with. And for the different age groups and so forth, like one of the graduates last year I'm still like really close friends with, and I talk to him all the time, so like nothing's changed. I don't have a problem. And like our friendship's still there, and I definitely go and see him in college, so
Mm-hmm.
and I expect it to stay the same way with the people I'm close with, so I'm not really concerned.
That's great. Thanks, Jet. Lainey, I want to ask you if you want to say anything about this topic.
I guess it was kind of overwhelming coming into a new school because I was transitioning from a boarding school with all girls in North Carolina.
Yeah.
It was definitely kind of overwhelming to come into a group that was already so like tight knit. I think when I came into it originally, it was like kind of a bit of a shock to see, because I went to a public school prior to that, so it was kind of nobody really got along as well. So when I first saw everybody and how like well they got along and how nice they were to each other, I was like, what is this? It was kind of like a little confusing to me, but everyone was really nice. Like the first month or so, I kind of felt like I fit in. Like I found where I kind of like, I don't know how to word it. It was like, it's kind of like I found it seemed like normal to me. It didn't seem like I just got there. It just kind of seemed like I was integrated just as like well as everyone else was.
Great. Thank you, Lainey. Appreciate that. Does anybody else want to add anything before we go to the next one?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I can't really speak too much about coming into a new school because I came here in second grade and not too many cliques that force you out there. But I can speak to activities outside of school. Like I participated in varsity soccer for 4 years at SHS, and you can do many things and meet many people. Just because you aren't at your local high school doesn't mean you can't participate in the activities. And there are a lot of extracurricular activities even outside of high schools that you can go and meet more people in. Like I've been in several club teams, and I know many people just from those. I've made many friends. So school isn't the only place that you make friends, but in NewGate you can make some of your closest and some of your best friends in school.
Thank you. All right. Next question. How has your Montessori education prepared you for life after high school? And so if you choose to answer this one, then also tell us what you're thinking about what your life after high school, what your plan is. And we know that all plans are tentative at this moment, but what your plan is for the next year or so. Okay, so how has Montessori education prepared you for life after high school?
I'll go ahead and I guess go unless Alex wanted to. Okay.
You can go first.
Okay. I'm actually going to a trade school. I'm not going to a traditional college. So I felt like the options that NewGate had for me to like alter my classes a little bit so that I could have them tailored to what my college is going to cover and my classes there. And then being, just so willing and accepting and supporting me in that decision, even though it's not the very traditional route to do that. I felt like they were interested in preparing me, even though that, might not have been what they were used to doing. I felt like And even with the friendships, the trade school I'm going to is very small, like Newgate, probably the same amount of kids. And so I felt like having the opportunity to be in a small school environment with it still being traditional was something that was going to help me later in life, getting used to talking to people I hadn't met before, getting used to being, in such a tight-knit community and things like that. I felt like were very helpful.
That's terrific. I have one other question for you, Reagan, and that is, what trade are you thinking of studying?
So I'm going to go into the livestock industry, more so with horses, horse training, barn ownership, and things of the like.
Ah, I see all those medals,
Yeah.
what we call them,
Good,
behind
good,
you.
yeah.
I have a feeling that has something to do with horses.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Alex, I think you wanted to speak to this.
Yeah, I was just going to say that um, the reason that I came to Newgate, there were a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason was because I was really interested in the fact that Montessori schools really try to prepare you for, life as an adult or even just further education. Um, I was lucky that I got to kind of hear about what Montessori is because, Matthew is my cousin and Tegan is my neighbor, both who have gone to Newgate for a long time. So I kind of got to hear about what life is like at Newgate before I was actually here. And I really liked how a big part of it is you have to make sure that you're able to get your own assignments done and that there are lots of opportunities for you to experience real world things. We have an internship program that we do every year. And just those sorts of things really got me excited because I felt that when I go to college, I would be more prepared. And that's why I chose to come to Newgate.
Great, thank you. Tegan?
What Alex mentioned is a good thing, like a good part of what prepared me for college and made me want to pick something for college is the internships. Like for a while, I wanted to go into culinary school, and then I did an internship for 1 week at a restaurant. It was like, nope, I don't want to do that anymore. And who knows, if I didn't have the internships, maybe I would still be doing that. But it really helps you try things out and find what you want to do. Another thing that helped me prepare for college is Newgate's schedule, because it's more structured like college classes, because colleges, the classes don't usually meet every single day a week for only 40 minutes like a lot of public schools are structured, but they meet for longer periods, only 3 times a day. And it's the same thing with Newgate. So I feel like just being in that mindset already will help make the transition into college easier.
Thank you, Tegan. Matthew, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, so I think that Newgate offers us a lot of experiences that are really beneficial to us that aren't typical and that you wouldn't get to have otherwise if you were to go to traditional public school. Internships have been huge for me. I've interned with 3 different law firms, and that's been totally cool. Things that I don't think I would have been able to. And through those internships, I learned about extracurricular activities. I joined Civil Air Patrol because one of the attorneys who I interned with was an adult in the Sarasota squadron for Civil Air Patrol. And now I'm going to UF and I'm going to be doing Air Force ROTC with the goal of commissioning after I graduate. And so, I think that there's a lot of, opportunities that we get at Newgate, like Poetry Out Loud too is a big one for me because that really helped me come out of my shell as a speaker. Because when I was younger in Montessori, I was always scared to talk in front of groups. And but because we have plays every year and we have operas, starting in 1st grade, going through 6th grade, starting in 4th, 5th, 6th, we start doing plays, Shakespeare, and we continue doing that through all of high school. I think those gave me opportunities to really come out as a speaker. And so when I had interviews for colleges and for, job positions and for application positions that I was applying for through Civil Air Patrol, I think that I was able to really shine because of those public speaking opportunities that I was presented through NewGate.
Madison.
Another thing that NewGate has us do sometimes is either, talk to new parents and stuff, or there have been a couple of times where we've had to give tours ourselves. I forget what that event was for, but there were a bunch of groups of some of the upperclassmen giving tours to parents and things like that. I think it was for a Montessori conference.
That was for the Montessori conference.
Yeah. And so a lot of that requires you to be very well spoken in how you describe your experience at NewGate, and try to, say everything you can, and not leave anything out. So those experiences, having to kind of explain NewGate to adults and things like that, helped me a lot in things like internships and events where I've had to network with people and just walk up to them and introduce myself.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of things definitely made me more confident and feeling like, okay, I've done this type of thing before, I can do it again in a real world setting. And it's also very cool seeing things that we do at NewGate translate in some of the internships that I've been a part of. For instance, one of the internships I did was for a local magazine, and every morning they would have a morning meeting where they would talk about what everyone's plan was for the day and their agenda and things like that, and that's something that we do at NewGate. We've done it in multiple different ways, whether it's by class or by random groups from 7th to 12th grade, or by cycle. So that was really cool to see. Like, oh, there's a reason that we have these morning meetings, because it translates to the workplace sometimes.
Absolutely. Thank you. I want to segue off of this a little tiny bit in that, because we've had to have a different sort of a model for these last 10 weeks or so, have there been certain kinds of experiences that have been affected by this whole idea of sheltering in place or social distancing that you would have experienced? Because I think one of the big things that we keep thinking about it as Montessori educators is, well, we don't know how long this situation is going to last, and is it going to change the way Montessori thinks of itself? We think of ourselves as a very experiential kind of model for education, and so are there any things that you guys feel like you missed that were hands-on experiential things that sort of got canceled, if you will, because of the quarantine? Alex?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing that comes to mind is the fact that we were supposed to be leaving for London, I think today.
Oh, man. Oh, geez.
Because that was going to be our research trip that, we do every single year in the NewGate secondary program, at least. And that's always been, the highlight of the year, each year that I've been here, because you get to learn usually about a new culture or some sort of new experience. And that's something that we did not get to do this year. And even just other field trips that are more typical, like going to see theater and things like that. That's been a big part of the Montessori experience for me. I mean, in my 3 years of public middle school, I went on one field trip, and it was to the bowling alley. There wasn't much to be learned there, but I've gotten to go and do lots of other experiences at NewGate, but this virus has definitely affected it a little bit. So yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Thank you.
One thing we're also not going to have is senior party.
Yeah.
Which is usually it's just a good party for everyone to get together.
Mm-hmm.
Especially even just to see your teachers outside of the classroom, and for your whole family to converse and meet everyone. And it's just a good closing out to the year that we won't have this year.
That's sad. I'm sorry. I'm glad we all got to go to, or many of us got to go to New York City. Certainly didn't do that this year.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
That was a good trip.
Yeah, ooh. Jet, Is there anything that you feel like you haven't gotten to do this spring because of quarantine and social distancing?
I mean, ever since all this stuff happened, I mean, it certainly came as a surprise, but I think, some things like they mentioned were unfortunately like taken away due to circumstances like the research trip. We're not going to have, this senior get together with all the families and so forth. But, we're doing our best to manage and make something happen.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. All right, let's go on to the next one. I often wonder as I interview seniors, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, if you guys can articulate some of the core values of Montessori. In other words, do you actually know in the front of your brain what the heck all of us at NewGate have been trying to help you experience and learn that are core values, things that we really believe strongly in? So Matthew, you've got your hand up, you really want to do this, so go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so Montessori, from when we're very little, I think first and foremost is grace and courtesy. When we're very little. We're taught grace and courtesy, always be polite to your teachers and your peers. We're taught respect for ourselves, others, and our environment. You're taught from very young the importance of not littering, the importance of putting things back where they belong. If you put something back where it belongs, you'll always be able to find it. We're taught critical thinking skills. The Montessori lessons, even some of the lessons for the youngest students, the Pink Tower, we start building on those critical thinking skills. And I think, most importantly, as a Montessori instills a lifelong love of learning in students.
Thank you. Somebody want to either elaborate on any of Matthew's points or add to his?
I was just gonna say, I don't know if you already touched on this kind of, but I was just gonna say independence is definitely a big one also, making sure that we can do things on our own, which is really helpful in situations like this where we can't physically be with our teachers. But I think a couple people already touched on that earlier, so that was all I was gonna say.
Oh, that's good.
And communication too, whether it's with our teachers about how we're doing in our classes, or whether we have a dispute or an argument with our classmates with the peace meetings, and working problems out amongst ourselves rather than resorting to physical harm or verbal harm.
Okay, somebody else want to add to that? Tegan, do you have anything on your mind?
Well, I've been prepped for this elevator speech for like my whole life, but I would say just the biggest thing for me is how Montessori really fosters like independence and kind of being your own person from when you're little, like getting your own works and stuff, to now that we're kind of self-reliant. And I think that will really help every single one of us with your transition onto college, because you're even more independent there and kind of just, it's just you now. You don't even have you don't have your parents or your teachers really breathing down your neck or anything like that. And that's something that Montessori really tries to replicate, I feel like, throughout the education, which I think is really beneficial.
Right. Anjali, have you picked up on any core values that either somebody has already mentioned that you'd like to elaborate on, or that they haven't said yet?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've gotten all those skills through my 4 years at NewGate, and I feel like the whole concept with Montessori really blends with the IB learner profile, which include being responsible, being open-minded and caring. And so I think it just really blends well, and that I learned a lot from it.
That's a good point. Thank you. Reagan, Jet, Lainey?
I think, all these, qualities that everyone's mentioning are certainly like throughout Montessori schooling that it just really cements it in place because these are like useful life skills that you're going to have as you go out throughout your life. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that, we have the opportunity to really hammer those in place.
Okay. So you guys have mentioned a lot of, great, wonderful things, and I'm going to let Nina talk, and then maybe I'll remember what I was going to say. Go ahead, Nina.
I think that Montessori also teaches us to accept others. Like we accept a lot of cultures and religions, and we even have a whole event called International Children's Day, which is all about accepting other cultures. And I think that's a big core value too, is learning to accept people of other ages too. Like we get to communicate with younger students, older students. It's really nice.
Thank you. That's a good point. And we hadn't brought that up. I'm glad you mentioned it. What I was going to ask was, so do you think that if you had been in some other type of educational system, and there are several, somebody said Waldorf, somebody said homeschool, somebody said public, other private school, boarding school, that's a whole different experience. Do you think that Montessori is unique in building the skills and character that you've had, or do you think that all schools build those same characteristics? Alex, you had your hand up first, and then Reagan.
Yeah, well, I think the one thing that's really unique about Montessori is it's always made me want to embrace the skills that are being taught. I've had some good teachers when I was in public school who have wanted to, instill some of the same values, but then the experience may be ruined by going to your next class and having a less kind teacher just go and bark at you for the whole class, and it doesn't really motivate the student as much. But in Montessori, I've always experienced that the teachers are really trying to guide you into making the choice yourself to embrace all the different things that are being taught, and that's made a big difference for me.
Thank you. Reagan?
Yeah, I agree with Alex on that actually. So with me having gone to a bunch of different schools, the teachers, I don't think I had but maybe like 2 that cared very much. I think like in middle school, I had one teacher who really wanted me to do my best. She gave me as many chances as she could. She was good friends with my family personally, and so, but I think going to the other teachers and the other staff members, like in middle school particularly, I had a horrible time with staff members. I mean, the teachers just they were rude excessively. They were not understanding. They didn't really care about my personal best. And so to come to a Montessori school where all the teachers are just wanting the best for me, wanting me to want that for myself, is been kind of a transition, but a good one. I think it's the Montessori school has been the first time I've ever actually seen this in a school. Even from private schools where the teachers were, it wasn't just like anyone could teach there. It wasn't anything like they weren't teaching anything other than, I mean, to a religious school that I went to, they were just teaching the Bible straight. They weren't teaching us, oh, this is the kind of character you should have just because that's the kind of person this world needs, kind of like the Montessori school does. And that's something I appreciate from them.
Thank you. That kind of segues right into the next question that I had, which would be, how would you describe your relationships with your teachers and other staff members, not just teachers, but other people, Brittany at the front desk, Manny,
You.
Oh, me. So how would you describe that, Matthew?
So I think that that's probably one of the things Montessori does best is the relationships with teachers and other adults at school. You know, Robin at NewGate from when I was in 3rd grade, you know, he was he was a teacher from 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th for me. Yeah. And then he became an administrator. He took your job, Lorna. And then he was still there for us. Yeah. You know? And the same way that you've still been around, you know, you retired a while ago, but you've still been around. And it's cool. You know, I'll stop in your office sometimes and I'll talk to you. And it's cool that we're able to have relationships with teachers and with faculty like that at NewGate. You know, some of the teachers I've known for years now, and it's like having parents who also teach me. Well, already have that, but it's like having more parents who are also teachers, and it's just a really great environment to have at NewGate, and I think that it really helps students too. You know, it's not like that with all teachers or all faculty, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
Thank you. Somebody else want to comment on that? Your relationship with teachers and other staff at the school?
Yeah, so the relationships you build with teachers in Montessori schools, or particular with NewGate, like Matthew said, is a lot like the relationships you have with your parents, honestly. You listen to them, you respect them, you trust them, but you also gossip with them, have fun with them, and laugh with them. And building a strong connection with your teachers is important because you start to trust each other, and they're there to help you grow. And a good relationship with your teachers helps because they will understand your habits and what you need what you need help with other than the subject they're teaching. And that's what I love most too, is that they don't just teach their subjects, they also teach core life lessons, and that's super important. And like a lot of my friends from public schools, when they see a teacher in public, they're like, oh no, I have to hide. But when I see my teacher in public, I'm like, oh, hey, like I haven't seen you in a while. Or I'm even still friends, like Facebook friends with my teacher from 4th grade, because we just had such a close relationship that we still want to check up on each other. And I think that's super important.
Thank you. That's great. Madison?
What you just said about your teachers from elementary school is kind of funny because I'm still friends with my elementary school teacher at NewGate on Facebook too, and I was really close with her. She would have cooking classes at her house, and some of us would go.
Miss
Debbie, yeah. And she recently posted a picture of the old Clark campus and the trees that are growing, and I saw some of my old classmates commenting on it, and it was really cool to see. But in high school, I definitely have formed really cool relationships with my teachers, and you can tell that they really care about your well-being and how you're doing. If you ever look like you have an off day, there's a pretty good chance a teacher's going to come up and be like, hey, what's going on? You seem different. Like, they pay attention, which is really cool. And they definitely go out of their way. Like Lydia, some of our science teacher, or is she everyone's science teacher? Yeah. So she'll sometimes just bring in food that she made, lunch or that she made, just because, oh, this morning I thought you guys might want to try this. Just really sweet gestures like that some of the teachers do, which is really just awesome. And I don't think you really get that anywhere else. And also around the time that we were preparing for SATs and things like that, Lydia was offering help, during lunch, just for us to come in and work through problems with her. The teachers as a whole really do kind of observe what's happening and try to make everything comfortable for us and improve as much as they can. So.
I'm glad you said that word, observe.
Yeah.
All of those Montessori teachers out there that are going to be watching this film are going to go, yes, that's what we were taught to do, is observe. Observe.
Yeah, definitely observing at NewGate. It's pretty easy because we're so small too.
See what's up with them. Anybody else want to say anything about your teachers before we go to the very last question? So, Alex?
I know I already said a little bit about teachers, but the one thing I wanted to add was the fact that, I assume that all the teachers, at least at NewGate, go through some sort of similar training, because they all seem to have the same mindset. Like you don't have one good teacher and one bad teacher. It seems like they all collectively want to support you, and to them you're not just this year's batch of students, but you're actually a person that they're going to remember and that they care about. So that's just something that I've noticed.
Very nice. All right, let's do the last question, and I'm going to really put you all on the spot and ask that each of you answer this one. Some of you have been here as many as 16 or more years, and some of you as few as 2 years. But for each of you, what has been your most important, valuable takeaway from your Montessori experience? Your most important or valuable takeaway. Nina, your hand went right up.
So I think the most important takeaway, which we've discussed a lot, is from my Montessori education would be the social connections I have made. Starting in kindergarten, Montessori taught students to interact with others of all ages. And I remember when I was in kindergarten, 6th graders used to come in our class once a week. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever because we got to learn from them. And I still think it's the coolest thing ever because in this way, you build a strong community, which eventually turns into a family. And not only does Montessori teach you to accept others and interact with other students of all ages, but they also teach you how to respectfully hold a conversation with an adult or a parent. And these little things might not seem big, but I do notice how it has affected me in the real life world. Because I notice it when I introduce my friends to my parents, and they have no clue how to hold a conversation with an adult.
Yeah.
And I notice it when I meet parents and interact with them. I know exactly how to talk to them with respect. And that's super important in the big world, like real life world, to be able to talk to others openly. And yeah.
Thank you. All right, Matthew, then Madison.
I think Nina hit it pretty spot on there too. When I was in 6th grade, Richard Weisgold, who was a senior at the time,
Yep.
Huge dude, and would normally be really intimidating, but he was like such a gentle giant, and he was the coolest guy to talk to, and he would always be willing to talk to younger students. And it's just such a cool thing that Montessori has. And so I do think that those social interactions are a really important takeaway because Nina's totally right. Interacting with adults, some of my friends who go to public school have trouble interacting with adults. And it's just awkward sometimes, and I've never had that problem. And so I think that that's super cool, and that's something really important that NewGate gives to you. And I think that that also builds on our experiences that we have, from Poetry Out Loud to our plays to our internships that I talked about earlier. To be able to get an internship, which everybody has to, you have to reach out and contact a local company or an organization, which can be pretty intimidating when you're a 7th grader. But everybody's got to do it. And then we spend a whole week with strange adults who are running a business or an organization. And we develop those skills through that. So I do think that that's one of the most important things that Montessori students learn, that students who go to a traditional public school might not learn.
Thank you. Madison.
So the social aspect is definitely a big one for me. I remember when I came to NewGate, I didn't even want to talk to people on the phone, and I am in the uniforms, I don't know what you would call that, but Matthew, Tegan, and I work in uniforms to help fill orders for the parents and stuff when new students come and things like that. And I remember there was one time I had to talk on the phone and I did not want to do it at all, and Tegan and Matthew made me, and I'm very grateful because now as a senior, I have to do those types of things a lot, especially for the job I have. I have to talk to fancy business people on the phone that I don't know, and it's a lot less jarring than it used to be, which is nice. But I think my main takeaway is that NewGate really taught me how to actually work. When I was homeschooled, I would do assignments just because I had to and just because I knew they had to be done, but I hated every second of it, and I didn't really understand why I was doing it. And it wasn't until I came to NewGate that I actually, cared about how my notes looked and cared about actually understanding the content, not just to pass or, finish the assignment. I actually cared about what I was learning about. And I think that's both due to the teachers and just the learning environment created at the school. So I've definitely noticed that I've become a better worker and just a better academic as a whole. And I've experienced so much growth in just like the 3 years of high school that I've spent at NewGate, compared to where I was. Like, I remember on my first day of school, I was in science class with Tegan, and I looked over at her and said, "How do you take notes?" So it's just kind of crazy to see where I am now. And it's really cool to reflect on that.
Thank you, Madison. Reagan, I'm going to go to you next.
Okay. So I think my biggest takeaway is the relationships that I've built here, like my social interactions with people. Like before I came here, I vividly remember in 6th grade, I used to cry for like 3 hours because I had to write an email to my teacher and I was so scared to do it. I don't know why. I was just so nervous talking to other people. And so I remember like before I came here, I straight up told my mom, I'm like, I don't know these people. I don't know how to do this. I'd been in like virtual high school for 2 years. I'd almost like forgotten, how do I properly interact with people my age?
Yeah, I felt like that too.
Yeah. So I think having like a school where I'm with other people and we're having internships where I have to go out there and kind of like grow up a little bit and make these interactions and do these things that used to terrify me as a kid, but now like I can pick up the phone and call, all these places around Sarasota and not have an issue, and I can I can write emails, I can write cover letters, resumes, I can, call businesses, I can offer service hours to all sorts of farms around Sarasota and not have as big of an issue as I used to. And I've learned how to properly be friends with people again. Because I've had such an awesome community around me that's, helped me be better socially, which is going to help me a lot in my future. Because you can't escape people, you can't not interact with people in your life. So
that's true. Thank you. That's great. I'm going to go over. Oh, Tegan, I'm going to skip you for a second, and then I'll be back to you. I'm going to go over to Jet.
Oh, so I think there's a few important takeaways that Montessori, has provided me with, and I think grace and courtesy is one. I think communication is the next one, and I think time management is the last one. I think all these are necessary life skills for the future. Time management for me was introduced back in middle school when we had core assignment lists. We were literally making our own block schedule. I think that's when it all like first began for me. Well, yeah, because that's when I started. But we've transitioned more towards blocking, and that's similar to college. But definitely, being able to get our work done on time and like knowing what we have to do when we have to do it, that's certainly important. And like I said, it's an important skill you need for when you become an adult. Grace and courtesy and communication, we've been building that since, when you start, it's young and necessary skill interacting with people, because like Reagan says, it's not like you're never not going to be interacting with people as an adult. You're gonna have to get a job, you're gonna have to do all these other things, and these are super useful skills to have when you're going about your life in the future.
Thank you, Jet. Tegan.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing for me that I learned how to do is think creatively. That's just something we learn like from the beginning up until now. And I think this skill really helped me I think it helped me get into colleges through writing my college essays in different perspective. And when I'm going into a big college like I am, I think that aspect of my education is going to help me stand out and help me look at assignments from different perspectives and things like that. So yeah, that's a big takeaway that I have.
Thank you.
Montessori.
Thank you. Who am I missing? I know I haven't heard from Braxton.
So I think the biggest thing that I'll take away from Montessori is knowing how to be a good person. And I think that's just in simplest terms, that's just what will stick with me for the rest of my life. Is just knowing how to be a good person. And the interactions that I've had with internships and just going to the grocery store, you know, it really shows, and people notice it, and it makes me feel better, makes other people feel better, and that's definitely something that I'll carry with me throughout the rest of my life. And I think that's something that I could have only learned through Montessori to the extent that I have, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Thank you. That's nice. Lainey, haven't heard from you, I don't think.
No, but I think one thing I would take away, probably I'd have to agree with Nina, is how I talk to like adults and like older people, like people who are like kind of older than me, I guess. It just kind of, it shows, my parents have seen it. It's like I'm more willing to go up to like, not random strangers, but like I'm willing to go up to people and like talk to them about like different things that I know. And it's like interesting to see when I go to, for example, like my our company's like gathering, like it's like an annual like meeting where we go and either give a speech. Mainly like my siblings and I will give speeches about how the family company, how much we love everybody who works there and how much they impact it. And then we have to go up and talk to people. And it's weird to see that I would never originally done that if I haven't gone to a Montessori school, because I feel more comfortable going up to like adults and being like talking to them about like having an intellectual conversation and actually knowing what I'm talking about. And it's different to see that compared to like how my siblings, they both go to public school, and it's like they can't really hold a conversation with adults. They can for so long, and then it's like kind of gets awkward. But it's like it's nice to see that I can learn how to do that, and that's definitely going to help me with the career I want to do.
Thank you. That was great. Now, hi, Anjali. I thought you were sneaking by there.
Yeah, so I would say that the importance of communication is one of the biggest things that I've learned from NewGate. Like starting at NewGate, I could have never imagined myself reaching out to a business and asking to have an internship there. And so having that experience really like helped me develop being able to be like a more confident person. I mean, and so being able to actually spend a week with a bunch of adults at a dermatology office was something that really enforced my career interest for the future in studying medicine. And so I couldn't like imagine what my sort of like life would be like without having those experiences and learning those communication skills.
Thank you. So did I get everybody? Alex, did you talk?
Not on this one, but I just wanted to add, I guess, that that basically the biggest thing for me is that I feel prepared for college, which is my next step. I was talking to a friend of mine who's also going to be at the University of Florida next year, and he was saying how, isn't it going to be weird that we're not going to have classes every day at the same time? I was like, no. Isn't it going to be weird that we're going to have to cook some of our meals for ourselves? No, I mean, those are kind of things that I've learned how to do before also. So I feel really that I have I'm a step ahead of some people just because I got a chance to experience some of these things with Montessori. So that's the big thing.
Thank you. Now, did I really get everybody? Yeah, okay. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming today. I know you have other stuff to do, and I was going to say things to do and places to go, but no places to go. Again, I really appreciate all the effort, the talent, the skills, the personalities that we've had here with us today. Thank you so much for sharing. I know that other people that are watching are going to enjoy this tremendously. So I will see you at your graduation whenever it is. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Lorna.
Take care.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Bye.
You're so welcome.
Bye.
Bye.